Hey guys, so today's video is going to be my eyeshadow palette declutter. I am going to split this video into two parts. I know some people would sit through like an hour-long video, but I figured that might be a little bit too long for some people. So I do have a lot of palettes. This is only half of them. I'll put a clip in right now of my entire eyeshadow palette collection. It has gotten so large and so out of hand. If you guys are new to my channel, I do love eyeshadow palettes, but I went a little bit crazy with purchasing palettes last year. I've cut it back so much in 2019, but because I did purchase so many last year, I just have way too many. So I definitely need to go through and declutter. I mean, I love so many of them, but there are a lot that I could part with. So I don't have a specific goal in mind. I would like to fit the majority of them in one drawer. Okay, let's start right here in the middle. This one is the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea Volume 3 palette. We got this in a BoxyCharm not too long ago. I was really excited about this because it comes with just some really beautiful shimmer shadows. It's so beautiful, and in my mind, like, I think I can make it work, but whenever I use it, I'm just not impressed by the formula. It's a little bit powdery and it's a little bit too dry for my liking. I just prefer more of like a creamy metallic. So I am going to declutter this one. Okay, this one is the Tarte Love, Trust, and Fairy Dust palette. I like this one a lot. It is limited edition. The packaging is so beautiful. When you open it up, the shades inside, they might look a little bit underwhelming at first because the packaging is so sparkly and beautiful. But I really like this palette. It comes with like half neutrals, half really pretty cooler toned berry shades. And this is one of the few Tarte palettes that really works well for me. I think it's just a good everyday formula. This one is the Make Believe in Yourself Eye and Cheek palette. This is my favorite Tarte palette that they've ever done, and I usually break this one back out during the spring because it has a little bit more of like subtle metallic shades in it. There's like a couple of metallic pastels, which I don't get in a lot of like colorful palettes, so I really enjoy this one. The formula is just so rich and beautiful. It's like a foiled metallic and they look perfect on the eyes, but I love the formula, so I am going to keep this one as well. Okay, I have two palettes from Becca, and these are the only Becca eyeshadow palettes that I've ever tried. This one is the Eye Lights palette from the Ski Glow collection, and it comes with a bunch of neutral colors. I think this formula is good, but I don't think it's for me. And I really didn't use it very many times, so I'd rather just pass it along to somebody else so they could enjoy it. Even though it is a pretty palette, I just think like my mom, who has more subtle eyeshadow palette taste than me, might like this one. This one is the Ocean Jewels palette, and this one's probably a little bit more unique than the one that I just showed you guys. Because I already have shades like this, and the formula isn't anything that I find to be super impressive, for me, I'd rather just pass it along to somebody else. The next one is the Persona Identity palette. I really like this one. It is from Persona Cosmetics, and the eyeshadow formula is definitely one of the best formulas that I've ever tried. The colors in here are a little bit more subdued. There are a lot of cooler tone shades, so if you're a fan of cool toned eyeshadow, you might really enjoy this one. I'm just so impressed by this formula. I think it's easy to work with. It's really, really high quality, so I am going to hang on to this one. Okay, the next one is the Face Candy Atlantis palette. This is one of my favorite palettes. I know that it got a lot of mixed reviews when it was first released because the matte shadows are very, very powdery, and there's definitely no doubt about that, but I find that they blend really well on the eyes, so if you're willing to work with your shadows a little bit, I think it's worth the money. It's like a $14 palette. It's not expensive at all, and the metallic shadows are insanely gorgeous. There are 6 metallics in here, and they perform insanely well. So I would say this palette is even worth it just for the metallic shadows, but I do love it. There's not a lot of palettes out there that have a lot of blues and greens in them. So to find a palette like this, it's so rare for me, and I'm definitely willing to put in the work to just work with the shadows a little bit more, and I really don't find them to be horrible. They're just a little bit powdery. So this is definitely one of my favorites. I believe this one just has a bunch of random products in it. These are from all different brands. Honestly, I don't even know which brands created these shadows. I need to go through and organize my single shadows into like larger palettes. I don't tend to reach for them very much, but I would like to get more use out of them. So I will reorganize them and then hopefully rediscover some of my single press shadows. So I'm going to hang on to this for now. I know we're kind of jumping around, but speaking of single shadows, I do have these palettes from ColourPop. So these are some of my ColourPop pressed powder singles. I just need to get a larger palette because honestly, I completely forgot that I had these greens. They are so beautiful. I would love to use them more, but I just have to figure out a better way to store my single shadows. So I am going to hang on to this for now, but I'm going to take it out of the drawer so I can reorganize it. This one is the Blow Me Away palette. It comes with 4 really beautiful colors in it, so I will take these out and depot these as well. Remember when ColourPop used to package their palettes like this? I'm so glad they do it the other way now, but I Love this one. I haven't used it in forever because I just completely forgot about it. So I definitely want to get more use out of these shadows. Okay, let's go back to where we were. So this one is the Pretty Vulgar Nightingale eyeshadow palette. We got this one in a BoxyCharm, and this is one of my favorite palettes that we've ever gotten from BoxyCharm. It just has a lot of cooler toned colors, and I don't have a lot of shades like this one, or this one in other palettes. So I really enjoy this one when I want to do more of a cooler toned look. And I've just been wearing a lot of cooler toned shadows these days, so I am going to hang on to this one as well. Okay, these two are from e.l.f. These are somewhat new. The first one is the Opposites Attract palette, which comes with some more colorful shades. Well, it's like half neutral, half colorful. I used this one the most and I like it. I think this is one of the best eyeshadow formulas that e.l.f. has done. The matte shadows are very blendable. They're not super richly pigmented, but I like that they're a little bit more subtle because sometimes shades like this can be a little bit intimidating, but because they blend so easily on the eyes, it's just an easy palette to work with. And then the New Classics palette is really beautiful. I haven't gotten as much use out of this one, but I am going to hang on to these as well. I just think they're a really, really good formula, especially because these palettes are pretty affordable. I do have another palette from e.l.f. over here. This one is the Modern Metals palette. It was actually in my everyday makeup drawer for January and February, and I didn't even touch it. So it's pretty, and I've heard so many good things about this palette, but I feel like because it was in my drawer, my everyday makeup drawer for 2 months and I still didn't use it, I just don't need to keep it. I'd rather give it to somebody else who would get more use out of it. Okay, this one is the Urban Decay Kristen Leanne palette. This one comes with really gorgeous shades, and the quality of these metallic shadows is so, so beautiful. These are just really gorgeous. Like the blues and the purple are my favorite. I'm really tempted to keep this one because I do love very specific shades in here, but I kind of feel like I have the colors, or I have very similar colors in my Masquerade mini palette from Juvia's Place. I don't feel like I actually need this one because I do have the Masquerade mini and I love the Masquerade mini. So I think I will actually declutter the Urban Decay Kristen Leanne. Even though it is a good palette, somebody else can just use it more than I do, I'm sure. So this one is the Tarteist Pro palette. This was actually a favorite of mine for a long time. I think the shadows in here are nice, and it was one of the Tarte palettes that worked for me. It's a little bit more cool toned, which is nice, but the Tarte matte shadows just aren't my favorite formula any longer. I have other matte shadows that I reach for over these. I hate to declutter it because there are so many pretty colors in here that I don't have in other palettes, but the truth is, it's just been such a long time since I've used it, so I don't really foresee myself reaching for this regularly anytime soon. Okay, this one is the Urban Decay Elements palette, and this was for holiday 2018. Again, it's one of those super large round palettes, and I like this one a lot. I think the colors are, again, somewhat similar to the Urban Decay Kristen Leanne, but there are so many shades in here, and I really enjoy it. I think it got mixed reviews last year, but for now, I do want to hang on to this one because I do enjoy it. I love using it. Okay, over here we have the Bad Habit Royals palette. This one is a dupe for the Anastasia Modern Renaissance, and it works perfectly fine, but I already have the Anastasia Modern Renaissance. I definitely don't need both of them. I wasn't always the biggest fan of the Anastasia formula, but more recently it has become one of my favorite formulas. So I am going to declutter the dupe just because I don't need both of them. And then under that, we have this super, super large palette. I never ended up filming a review on this because I don't know, it took me so long to test it out and I never even got around to testing everything. This was like the Too Faced Anniversary palette. It comes with a lot of really beautiful colors in here, and the top row are like their original 1998 shadows and the bottom row was like their modernized version of it. But I don't know, I wasn't really that impressed by the formula, to be honest. I didn't find it to be anything spectacular. Sometimes Too Faced shadows are really great, sometimes they're really underwhelming. This one just felt underwhelming as a whole. I feel like there's a lot of people that I know that would love this, so I'd rather just pass it along because it is basically brand new. I didn't get a ton of use out of it, so because I just don't need it in my personal makeup collection, I'm sure somebody else would enjoy it more than I do. Okay, I'm making good progress already. So we already cleared out like a little corner over here. Let's go through the ColourPop palettes because to be honest with you, I don't think I'm getting rid of a lot of them. And then I'll go through these little palettes and we'll finish up with this section right here. So this one is the ColourPop Chasing Rainbows palette. You guys, I used this like once. I purchased so many palettes right at the end of 2018 that it just felt a little bit overwhelming. I was planning on doing like a best and worst new ColourPop eyeshadow palette video because they were releasing palettes like crazy, and this is one that kind of like fell under the radar. Because I love ColourPop, I do want to test it out and see if it is a palette that I love, that I recommend. I'm planning on doing like a complete overview on all of their palettes that I own, so I am going to hang on to this one. There are some pretty colors in here. This one is the ColourPop Disney palette. It is the It's a Princess thing, and I really like this one. When I do very subtle eyeshadow, this is one that I reach for because there are so many beautiful colors in here. It was kind of like my staple when I first got it, and I could see myself wearing this all spring, so I am going to hang on to this one as well. This one is the All I See Is Magic palette, which comes with a lot of beautiful metallics. It was like a limited edition palette, but I still reach for this one all the time. There are so many beautiful cool tones in here, and I just enjoy the palette as a whole. Okay, so this one is the ColourPop Golden State of Mind palette. I love this palette, and I completely forgot about it, which is the reason why I declutter, because I think because I have so many, there are palettes in here that I love that I don't get to use as much because I open up my drawers and I'm so overwhelmed, which is why I need to cut back. This formula is so nice because it's like a gorgeous glitter formula. It's so interesting, and it's just different than any of the other formulas that I personally have in my collection. So I want to make sure that I get more use out of it because they just look so, so beautiful on the eye. So I am going to keep this one. I am going to declutter the ColourPop Yes Please palette. I didn't think I was going to declutter any of my ColourPop palettes, to be honest with you, because they are my favorite palettes, honestly, out of everything that I own. But the Yes Please palette is very warm, and I do like warm shadows from time to time, but I don't know why. I find myself reaching for this one hardly ever. Maybe because when I reach for warm tone shadows, I already have shadows in my collection that I kind of like a little bit better than these. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's not a palette that I reach for very often, if at all, lately. So I definitely need to declutter it because I don't use it. And even though I love ColourPop palettes and I would love to hoard all of them, I just don't need to do that. So we're going to declutter this one. The Give It To Me Straight palette is such a beautiful palette. It's one of my favorite palettes of all time because even though it's not like a berry palette, it kind of gives you like a berry vibe on the eyes. There are a couple of pink tone shadows in here, and I just love it. It's one of my absolute favorites, and I would wear it pretty much every day if I could, but I do have other palettes that I love as well. But when I want a little bit more of like a pink toned neutral look, this one is a great option. The Good Sport palette is a newer palette. I've had it for a while, but I haven't played around with it as much because again, I purchased way too many palettes last year, but there are some really interesting colors in here like this gold, this green. The colors in here are just really interesting as a whole, so I really enjoy using it when I do use it. I just need to give myself the chance to use it even more. So I am going to hang on to this one as well. This one is the She palette, which again is one of my favorites, but you probably wouldn't know that by looking at it because it doesn't look like I've used it that much. And again, I think it's just one of those palettes that kind of got like lost in the shuffle because I have way too many palettes. I am going to hang on to this one and probably put it in like my everyday makeup drawer so I can get more use out of it. The ColourPop Element of Surprise palette is one that I'm actually going to declutter as well. What's weird about this palette is that it always looks different on the eyes than it does in the palette. Like this shade and like this shade, just a bunch of shades in here don't look the same on the eyes as they do in the palette. So I never know what type of look I'm going to get when I actually like reach into these shades. It always turns out really pretty, but I feel like in general, it's not what I was going for as a whole. So because of that, I just don't think I need to keep it. The Zodiac palette is a really, really beautiful palette. I love this one because there's just so much going on. You get like colorful shades, you have berries, and then you have some neutrals as well. And I just really like it. The My Little Pony palette was limited edition. I am going to keep this one because as a whole, it's a little bit more of like a muted, colorful palette. It's still really bright and pretty and vibrant, but there are like some pastel shades in here. There are more muted oranges, and it's just such a fun palette to use. So I really enjoy this one. I'm actually going to declutter You Had Me at Hello. This one is a nice palette, and I know a lot of people just love this one. And I don't know what it is about this one, but I don't reach for it as much as I do like my other ColourPop neutral palettes. The top one is I Think I Love You, and the bottom one is Double Entendre, and I love these. Like, they're just neutral eyeshadow palettes, but I can create any look that I want, whether it's very simple or very dramatic, whether it's like an all matte look or an all metallic look. So because I have so many neutrals in these two, I just don't think I need to keep this one. And the last ColourPop 12 pan palette is the Dream Street palette. This one is the Kathleen Lights palette. I really enjoy this one. Again, I don't reach for a lot of like super intensely warm shadows, but when I do, I love these two. And then you get like some really gorgeous like neutrals, and then you get some cooler tones. As a whole, I just think this palette is really beautiful, really high quality. Okay, I am going to declutter these Wet n Wild quads. I have 4 of them, and the Wet n Wild formula it's so affordable. Like, it's one of the most affordable eyeshadow formulas that I've ever tried, so I don't expect it to be as high performing as like a high-end palette. The shadows in general are a little bit more subtle, so I find that I have to build them up on the eyes, whether they are matte shadows or metallic shadows. And I don't mind doing that because there are some really pretty colors, but I just don't think I need to keep these. At this point, I have way too many palettes, so I need to be selective about which ones I keep, and because I haven't reached for these a whole lot, I think I'm just going to declutter them. But I think I am going to keep the 10 pan palettes because even though the formula is the same, you just get a lot more going on in these palettes, so I can kind of justify keeping them in my collection. I have this e.l.f. palette. This one was a collab that they did a while ago, and I really enjoyed it. I did get use out of it. It has like 7 shadows, or it has 6 shadows and a highlighter, and I think it's pretty, it's fun to play with. But again, at this point, I need to get rid of some, and this is one that I think I could duplicate with other palettes in my collection. This one is the Violet Voss Holy Grail Fun Sized palette. I need to play around with this one. I've swatched it like a million times, but I don't know how many times I've actually worn it on the eyes. The reason why I'm not just decluttering it because I haven't worn it is because I've been wanting to try the Violet Voss formula and I haven't tried it yet. So because I got this one in a subscription box, it's a great chance to try out the formula before committing to like an entire palette. They have really, really large palettes. So I am going to use this one before I decide whether to keep or declutter it. Okay, this one is the ColourPop Make Up Your Mind palette. This is something, okay, I haven't even used this. I want to say I got this one for free with like a ColourPop order, but I can't remember. I need to declutter it if I haven't used it. I like the ColourPop metallic formula, but I kept all of those ColourPop palettes, so I don't think I need to keep this one on top of it. I have 2 Smashbox palettes. I did declutter the majority of these Cover Shop palettes because I think I had all of them at one point, and they're not bad, but I think they've actually improved the formula or maybe just reformulated them as a whole because now when I try them, they seem to perform better. So this one is the Bold Glitter Eye palette. This actually is not a bad option if you like glittery shadows. I don't tend to wear glitter shadows. I will wear like a metallic, but I don't typically wear glitter. I think I'm going to declutter this one, and then this one is the Smashbox Vlada Petal Metal palette. I really like this palette. It's actually one of my favorites, but I feel like I should declutter it. I think it's such a pretty option, but I have so many rosy toned eyeshadows that I don't find myself reaching for this one as much just because the shades right here in the middle are pretty similar, so I don't find that I can get a lot of different looks using this. At one time I felt like I could, but again, I just have so much. Like I have to be a little bit more selective, so I'm just going to pass these 2 along. I'm going to keep the Dose of Colors Marvelous Mauves palette. This one comes with 5 matte shadows, and I like this formula a lot more lately than I have in the past. It's a very, very powdery formula, but I just find that they blend on the eyes very easily, very beautifully, so I enjoy this one a lot. These Natasha Denona palettes, I'm like so tempted to keep these, and I don't know why because I don't reach for them that often. The weird thing about these palettes is there are shadows in here that I like and then shadows in here that I don't like. I've talked about them a million times on my channel, but the Mini Lila palette, like I like these 2 shadows, but I don't typically reach for these 3 just because these 2 purples do not blend well for me, and this blue is really gorgeous, but I just don't typically reach for it because I'm not that impressed by the formula. And the Mini Star palette, again, was just a little bit underwhelming. They don't look as bold on the eyes as they do in the pan, and I feel like I have to like build them up on the eyes over and over, and even then they're very subtle looking. So it's different than I thought it was going to be. I think it is time to declutter them. They just don't perform as well as like my Juvia's Place shadows. So if I have other palettes in my collection that have similar shades that I would reach for over these, I just don't need to keep them. So it's hard, but I'm going to part with them. This one is the Bad Habit Supernova palette, which has a lot of gorgeous colors. I want to say this one is a dupe for a Natasha Denona palette. I think it's a dupe for the Lila palette, but honestly, that still wouldn't discourage me from trying the Lila palette because I think the formula is going to be completely different. I like the shadows in here. I think they're really beautiful, and I do reach for this one. So I'm going to hang on to this one. This one, though, I think I'm going to declutter. It's the Profusion Temptress palette. I haven't even used this. I got this, like they sent it to me in PR, and I've heard good things about Profusion, so I wanted to test out the formula. But because it's just been sitting here and I haven't tested it yet, I just feel like at this point, if it's an unused palette, I should just pass it along to somebody else and they can enjoy a brand new palette. This one is the Urban Decay Kristen Leanne Daydream palette. This one comes with 5 matte shadows, and I held on to this one because I thought it was just like a good staple neutral palette. The shadows blend really well on the eyes. It's just easy to work with, but again, I just don't need to keep it. I have a lot of neutrals, so I'd rather just pass this one along to like my mom who would enjoy it a lot. These are from ColourPop. These are the Lit and Wet palettes from the Bretman Rock collab. I love these so much. They are like some of my favorite palettes of all time. They're completely different. The Wet palette comes with really beautiful, like cooler toned blue shades, and the Lit palette has some warm tones. I just think that these are so gorgeous. I definitely get more use out of the Wet palette than I do the Lit palette, but I do like these shades. Like I love these berries, I love these neutrals, so I am going to keep both of these as well. Okay, I don't think I'm going to get rid of any of my Juvia's Place palettes. This is one of my favorite formulas. It's kind of like a tie between ColourPop and Juvia's Place, and I just enjoy them a lot. A couple of these are newer that I haven't tested out a whole lot, but I know that I'll use them. So this was like my first Juvia's Place palette. This one is the Nubian palette. It comes with a lot of neutrals, and it's one of my go-tos, especially during the summertime. I love using this shade. I love using this shade. It's such a beautiful formula. If you guys haven't tried Juvia's Place yet, their shadows are so creamy and so rich. This one is the Saharan. It comes with a lot of gorgeous colors as well. You get some unique shades like this green, and then a lot of them are very neutral toned, but it's just such an interesting palette. I think they do a lot of unique like color stories within their palette, so you get a lot of color combinations that you might not think would work well together that really do. This one's a little bit newer. I have only used this like once or twice. I did an eye look using these 2 shades. It was like a 2 shadow look and it worked so well, but I really enjoyed it, so I definitely need to get some more use out of it. And then I have the Warrior palette and the Warrior 2. The Warrior is one of my favorite Juvia's Place palettes. It just comes with a lot of gorgeous neutrals. You get metallics and mattes, and it's such a large palette. Like the pans are giant, but it's just a nice option. I think this would be a really good option if you have a darker skin tone and you like neutrals as well. And then the Warrior 2 is an all matte palette. I haven't even used this. No, I did use that. I did use this shadow once. A couple of these were in my everyday makeup drawer for January and February, but I just put way too much in that drawer. I didn't get a chance to use everything. So this is going back in my drawer. I can't wait to use this shade and this shade. I just think it's like an interesting neutral. It's a little bit or an interesting neutral palette. One of my favorite Juvia's Place palettes is the Masquerade Mini. I did touch on this one earlier, but I love this because you get like rows of colorful shades and then rows of neutrals. And I always use them to create like a one eyeshadow look. So I'll take this blue and place it all over the lid and blend it into the crease and I'm good to go. So this is probably my favorite Juvia's Place palette out of all of them. And then these are new to my collection as well. This one is the Magic Mini, which comes with a bunch of colorful shades as well. I haven't played around with this one a lot, but I'm excited to use like these blue tones. We are going on vacation very soon, so I think I'm going to bring this one with me. And then the Tribe palette, again, this is one that I haven't really used a lot, and normally if I have a palette in here that I haven't really touched, I would just declutter it, but I just purchased these, so I'm going to give myself the chance to use them before I declutter them. Okay, and the last 2 palettes are the Essence Counting Hearts palettes. These were holiday palettes. I am going to declutter this one. This one is the Love You a Latte. I didn't even use it. I think that I did swatch it. I just wasn't really that drawn to the colors in here. There's like a lot of brown going on, a lot of more subtle shades, and I just don't think I need it. I do like the Love You Very Much palette. Even though it's large, it's bulky, it's nice to have some of those more subtle like blues and purples because they go really well with some of the really colorful palettes that I have. Like this one, there are some complementary tones, and then of course the Masquerade Mini. Okay, so these are the palettes that I'm keeping. These are the palettes that I'm decluttering. I got rid of about 40%. I kept 40 and I decluttered 24, so like 38%. I'm definitely okay with that because as I'm looking through what I kept, there's not a palette in here that I don't think I will use or that I'm just hanging on to for the sake of hanging on to it. I definitely think I'll use everything I have. And then I am going to like depot these shadows and then these shadows, so that will definitely save space as well. Stay tuned because I will upload part 2 in a few days so you guys can see the rest of my collection. But I hope you guys enjoyed my first declutter. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day and I'll see you very soon with a new video. Bye.